Hello everybody, it's me, DigMC, and welcome back to another video of the Digcast. Today, special guest, Hermeticlock, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
So for those of you that don't know, Herm is known as the player for, creating unique experiences, I think Fitmc once said. That's kind of your thing.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. So, founder of the SpawnMasons, founder of Guardsmen, done loads of cool community shit over the years. And it's quite a good time to have you on this episode, because last episode we had negative entropy, and these two kind of have like obviously Hermeticlock founded the SpawnMasons, and negative runs it like nowadays, and Herm watched that podcast and left a comment being like, oh yeah, negative views kind of cool, like blah blah blah. So it's good to have you on. So I think we're going to open up here with a bit of a juicy question. So obviously we've established that you're kind of overall or what you're known for in 2B2T is creating unique experiences, right? Which I assume you do for the enjoyment of like others, right?
Like the enjoyment of having fun with people, in other words?
Yeah, essentially. So do you think, or to what extent, is this a reflection of the real world, Hermeticlock?
It's 100% a reflection. The way that I act in-game is basically the way that I act in the real world.
Okay, so you like starting... Because obviously in the real world you can't start block game projects, but you do things... So basically you get enjoyment from other people, from giving other people enjoyment, essentially.
Yeah, from giving other people enjoyment, and also, starting my own personal projects, whatever they might be.
Shit, I forgot to start the timer. Hold on. Let me just account for this. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Right, so... Okay, so fair enough. And has that always been... So obviously you say that's kind of a part of who you are in the real world, creating cool things for people to do, allowing other people to have fun. Is that... When you first joined 2B, was that like... your calling? Did you kind of know it was going to be something where you were going to start cool things, or did you kind of just join like every other new fad being like, oh yeah, I'll escape Spawn, see what happens?
Well, I mean, when I joined 2B2T, it was right in the middle of the Russia War, 2016, and during that time period, I don't think anybody was coming in thinking that they would establish themselves and set up a reputation on the server, because it wasn't a very welcoming environment. So the only thing that I really had set out to do was escape Spawn with Deloaded, who I joined at the same time with.
Do you think it's kind of a modern 2B2T sort of thing where becoming a big player is kind of seen as a goal, and kind of a thing started by Fitmc, because that's what a lot of new players aspire to do, is start something and being a Fitmc video, and obviously back then that wasn't the case. So do you think that joining 2B2T for the purpose of becoming something, do you think that's a fairly new concept?
No, I don't think it's a new concept at all. Even in 2016, people were doing that sort of thing. Fit was much smaller. At the point, it was like you try to be in a camping rusher video, or some mix between the two. But definitely during 2017, you start to see a shift where people are like actual Fit fans. I mean, I guess that was 2016 too. Anybody that was team veteran that wasn't an actual old player was more of a Fit fan than a rusher fan. But I don't think that that's a new thing. I think that people join 2B2T because, as opposed to other multiplayer worlds, the things that happen here can actually get noticed by a, worldwide audience.
They get
so
recorded.
I think that attracts. Yeah, they get recorded down. You can end up on a wiki page, right? And your normal mom and pop server just doesn't have that. So I think that's what attracts people from different servers to 2B, not necessarily because there's glory about being in a Fit video, but because when you're spending time in Minecraft, you want to be able to share your projects with the world. And when you do interesting things on 2B2T, you're able to do that.
Okay, and like, so nowadays, because obviously you do see a lot of, it's kind of the the Fitfag dream, right? You join 2B2T to make a name for yourself. So you're saying that's always been the case. It's just nowadays you go about it for not go about it through a different way, but the actual material goal is different, i.e. being in a Fitmc video as opposed to like being known about in the community.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, the audience is much larger than it was before, but it's also harder to do things that haven't been done yet, right? Like you can't just mine to the world border and expect to get a video on it, right? So we have to constantly push the envelope now.
And do you think that it's becoming more and more of a... Because obviously 2B2T, I think you have this same opinion as me and quite a lot of other people I've heard you like talk about it, or some people mention you in relation to it, that 2B2T is basically a social game. Do you think that's become ever more so the case, as obviously we've been stuck on 1.12 and the things you can actually do within the game, like all the boxes have been ticked, so now the only thing you can do to be creative and be noticed is do things with people, right?
2B2T is a set of Discord servers, and new ones constantly appear, and we all happen to play on the same Minecraft server. But the majority of communication happens via Discord, and nobody actually like uses in-game chat to get to know one another, right? So, yeah, I'd say that it's primarily a social game. You know, even when you're building like a base, right? The aim of that is, you know, you have a place to run and jump around with your friends. And maybe you're in VC at the same time.
I think 80% of my time at every base has just been spent jumping and running on like blocks.
Well, the point building. Of, you know, there's definitely a curve between like, you know, you start a base, right? And the energy level is high and people are building things. And then you build enough to the point where you can run and jump around and there's things to run and jump around in, and then the building slows down. So really, you know, one could argue, and I like to argue, that the point of building bases is to create an interesting space for you to run and jump around in. And once you've like got that, you're pretty much done. Everything else is extra.
Move on to the next one.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely touch on that a lot later when we talk about your world-famous spawn base. But going back to kind of your first few days on, not days on 2B2T, that's dumb, but first sort of your initial exposure to 2B2T. I'm right in saying you found out a bit about it from Russia, right?
Yeah.
I saw the Russian, so when you joined 2B2T, did you have like a set of goals that you wanted to accomplish? Like these can be like fit faggy, like, oh, I want to go to the world border, blah blah blah, or they can be, you know, I want to start a group, I want to be known. Like, did you have any goals?
Well, so in every other server that I had played on multiplayer wise, I would rise to, you know, the top of the food chain, so to speak. Mostly because of just social interaction, not necessarily because of like, you know, I make the prettiest builds or anything, but you know, bringing people together in interesting ways has always kind of been something that I've enjoyed doing in Minecraft. And so that was kind of a goal. Actually, there's a book written like a month or so after I joined 2B2T. Might have been like maybe the fourth time that I logged in, because it was really hard to get into the queue back then. It wasn't like there was no prio queue. It was just everybody's like waiting in this big thing and you have to like refresh. I don't know if you remember that, Dig, but it was like
no, I didn't play back
for
then.
A couple
was this
a couple months.
Was this pre-veteran queue as well?
Yeah, pre-veteran queue.
Oh shit. Okay.
Like it was brutal. But so, you know, around the fourth time I logged in, I actually made a book and I dedicated it to, you know, the great invisible brotherhood of 2B2T and, you know, whatever. And, you know, it was like my idea to create some kind of organization, some kind of club that would last for a while and would attract interesting players.
Okay, so you from the offset, you always had that vision of you want to kind of start a group, to put in simple terms, because of things you've done on previous servers, which are like
yeah.
What were kind of? Did you have any groups on like previous servers, like faction servers? Did you have like factions or whatever?
Oh yeah, definitely. Deloaded and I met each other on a faction server.
Oh,
I had a
cool.
group called Imagination, and we eventually changed that to Dawn Fear after he built like a city. He had griefed my base, which wasn't much, and he built a huge city on top of it. And he was like, "Hey, this is like the most powerful faction on the server. Why don't you just absorb me, and I'll build for you, and then we can call it Dawn Fear if you're impressed by my building skills." And I was like, "Sure, why the heck not? What does Dawn Fear mean, by the way?" I had not met Deloaded yet, so I had all sorts of questions about the whole thing.
What does Don Fio mean?
He had thought that it meant father's gift,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean anything from what I've
it's just a cool sounding thing.
read. I guess so.
Hold on, let me just take a second. I need to turn streamer mode on because I was getting audible notifications when people were leaving. That was dumb. Disable sounds, yes. Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
Anyway, and so 2B was just a good fit for me as a player because I would hack on the other servers, but I do it in like, an incognito way, right? Like I'd try not to get banned for it, so I'd be pretty sneaky about when I'd, turn on my exploits. Deloaded didn't even know that I used hacks until maybe 5 months after I had met him, and I just decided to boat fly with him randomly.
Nice.
Kind of fun. And so 2B was a good fit because I wouldn't have to hide, my hacked clients.
So clearly you'd always been kind of looking for more, sort of like you weren't happy being constrained by the limits of these faction servers.
Right, and any interesting exploits I was on top of. So
yeah.
Definitely.
Are you like you big into your like Minecraft dev stuff, like coding, all that bullshit? Like,
I've made one Minecraft mod, but Java's not really for me. I do web development, software engineering by trade, but
okay.
I haven't. I feel like if I'm going to be coding, it's not a good use of my time to be doing that for Minecraft-related things.
Yeah. There's other people for that, I guess. So surely there's like all throughout your Minecraft experience, I'm gathering, you've always kind of gravitated towards, as you're known for, bringing people together, right? So what is it about that's like, is that kind of like ego's a bit of a strong word, but is that kind of an ego thing because it makes you feel like important when you're like in control of people, or when you're known for doing something creative, like that can feel quite good? Or is it more of like you like more, I don't know, I'm trying hard to articulate this. Is it more so like you gain enjoyment from seeing other people to enjoy? Like, how far along that spectrum are you? Are you more like, oh yeah,
so
I like feeling like a leader?
It's not an ego thing. I just believe that if you don't play with others, first of all, right? It's just single player with chat, and there's really no point in paying $20 a month to go onto the server. But to that end, if you're going to play with others, well, who are you going to play with and what are you going to do? And if you don't like what other people are doing, then, the only way to have fun is sometimes to create your own fun. And so what I just kind of did is I would start these projects and people would become interested in those projects. It wasn't necessarily like I'm inviting all these people before I start. It's I'm already doing something interesting, and other people want to do something interesting too. So it's about creating your own fun. It's not necessarily an ego thing. It's like when I'm playing on the server, I want to be doing something, and it's more interesting if others are doing that something with you.
And you didn't think the options provided on 2B at the time were kind of suiting your needs? Because I know you joined Voco for a bit, right? I heard you mention in the previous podcast.
Yeah, they were cool. There was some inspiration for SpawnMason type activity with Voco. The first time I killed back to Spawn and joined Voco, they were doing like this Spawn build. It was like their HQ, and I had never done something like that before on 2B. Like 6 or 7 players just walking around Spawn, doing their thing. And then even the Fourth Reich came and like started trying to like blow people up and stuff with crystals. It was like totally fun, and it probably gave me some inspiration to not just have a group, but to have a group that would meet together on the server at the same time, because there's something to be said for that too. uh, 2b2t is way more interesting when there are 30 people standing in the same 4 chunks than, asynchronous build where you log in, you build a few things, nobody else is online, you come back, log back in, and there's like more stuff. It's way more interesting when everybody's online at the same time.
Oh, of course. So what made you unhappy with Voco to the point where you kind of realized, oh, I want to do my own thing? Like, why didn't you just stay in Voco?
Well, so we built where we're actually at right now, like
Dawnfear
behind
10.
us. Yeah, Dawnfear 10 started off as a Voco base.
Oh, okay,
And,
I never knew that.
Yeah, so when Dila and I came in, we were like, well, we need to have some protection and we need to meet players. So that was really why we joined Voco, was that we could build, a new Dawnfear, because we had different cities and other servers. I had been a part of at least 2 before this, I think. And then Voco drama happens, right? This used to be like the capital of Voco, right? All the coolest Voco players would come out here because it was like really cool.
Sure.
But then Cultstid would notice, hey, there's really no Vortex coalition symbols. You guys are like, using your own flags and stuff. And I think there is a little bit of animosity that began where, there's like a separation of culture. And a lot of the other Vortex Coalition folks became aware of that, of course. And some of them maybe preferred Dawnfear a little bit more than Voco. And so I decided to capitalize on that opportunity when Cultsnid kind of showed a weak point in leadership. He had like done this thing that was like rather culty. He was like telling everybody to accept him as like their lord and savior, and if he didn't, then they'd get kicked from the group. And at that time, I was in charge of the Vortex Coalition website, so I was like, we can probably like coup the entire Vortex Coalition right now if we play our cards right. And so that's what we did. That was the first time that Voco like actually died. It got revived and they had their phase 3 thing, but Dawnfear is the reason why phase 2 went away. But I eventually like repaired my relationship with the Vortex Coalition folks, but a lot of them did actually just end up staying with Dawnfear, and some of the more interesting ones also became SpawnMasons as well.
Okay, so was Cultsnid like, because from an outsider looking in, you always see, or back when Voco was kind of a thing, you always saw it as, obviously they were LARPing as this like communist like group, like sort of like Armour Smith, but not as like retarded, whatever. So right. was that not just a show to put onto new players, or was that actually like, did the leader of Voco, Cultsnid, genuinely try to lead the group in that manner?
Every now and then Cultsnid would really go off the deep end. And so we just took advantage of one of those moments and, converted everybody into the Dawnfear Discord as opposed to being in the or the Voco one. Changed the Vortex Coalition website to be about Dawnfear, all that kind of stuff.
And so why didn't Dawnfear? Why did SpawnMasons happen? Why didn't it? Why wasn't it just Dawnfear happening
right.
ever after?
Well, so you can't do a coup like that and expect that no repercussions are going to happen. So a day or two after that, we couped Voco. Cultsnid leaked the chords on the Reddit to the base we're standing at, and about 30 minutes later, Bubba J came to the base here and just blew the whole thing up in front of us. I actually have footage of Bubba J arriving and blowing it up. We were in the middle of doing like a final base tour video, and Bubba J showed up halfway through. And it was kind of crazy because we had only seen Bubba J in Fit videos. It's like, what the hell?
Legendary
this
player.
like, yeah, exactly. It's like this like legendary players actually here blowing up our base right now, and there's nothing that we can do about it.
Yeah,
He
fuck.
flew under the nether and got here in like, I don't know. Yeah, like 30 minutes.
How far
We're
out?
pretty far out. We're like 650k out. This
Oh,
is
wow.
when there weren't really any like speed exploits besides if you could fly with the elytra under the nether, then yeah, you're good.
So a select few had a very, had it easy, but most other people were just entity speeding on horse. And that's the
Right.
thing with like 2B. It used to be so much like the map used to be so much bigger because things would just take way more time to get onto. And obviously in recent years, all the elytra bypasses and boat fly blah 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 has kind of shrunk it down a lot.
And so, yeah, I mean, definitely. So from there, the base gets destroyed, and I'm like, well, we're back at spawn, basically. So I start this little spawn base, and it was going to be your camera account left. Is that okay?
I just recognized it's alright.
Okay. So I went back to spawn, and I was like, okay, let me start a little spawn base project, and maybe we can recruit new people to build with us.
And
That
this is
kind
what
of the
was this
point.
world famous spawn base, or was this after that?
Yeah, this is the world famous
Okay.
spawn base. So this is like January of 2017, and the idea was just, okay, I'm going to build this base, and I'm just going to tell everybody the chords, and they can come if they want to. And anytime it gets griefed, we'll just rebuild it with the same people that are there. And it was totally fun, and it attracted a lot of interesting people. And that's kind of how I met with like Tavix and Tim McNuke Pants and all those interesting individuals from the Fourth Reich. So I ended up joining that group, and we did a couple collaborations with Dawnfear and the Fourth Reich. There's like an airbender base and like random stuff, and that was pretty fun. And every now and then, we'd go back and we'd hang out at the Hermeticlock spawn base. And I met so many great and interesting people that way. I started a little YouTube series where I'd like record progress on the base, show who griefed it and what we're doing with it next and all that stuff. And then it became a meeting point of sorts for just people like do things. Even Fit came by a couple of times. This was before he really even knew who I was.
Yeah, could you give a little like TLDR just what the world famous spawn base is? Because obviously I and a lot of other people know what it is, but some people might not know what you're on about.
Sure. Well, the funny thing about it is that when I started it, it was neither world famous nor I guess the only thing, it wasn't world famous at all. It was just this random thing that I had created that I called world famous for really no reason other than to, get people a little more interested in the project, right? As a meme, if you will. But yeah, the idea, like I said earlier, was that the chords would be public. I'd record videos there. Anybody could come and do anything that they wanted. They could build or they could grief. And most people would come to build, and then we'd all, go to bed and would wake up, and things would all be like destroyed. But the same group of players would keep coming back to rebuild. And so it was there that I got the idea to call everybody the Spawn Builders Guild. That's what I called it. I called it the Spawn Builders, the Spawn Builders Guild. But even on the signboard, it said, our nickname will be the SpawnMasons. And that was just a funny play on, Freemasonry and, Spawn and all that kind of stuff. It'd be like a little secret society. It was actually more inspired through the Log Masons, which was like a hermitcraft group in, I think, season 5 or 4. They would get they had like a monopoly on wood or something, but they were like a little secret society. And I was like, ooh, I could do something like that in Minecraft as well. And so, the inspiration came partly from that and partly because I'm a Freemason in real life as well.
Oh, you actually?
Yeah, I've been a Freemason for a little over half a decade.
Oh, that's sick. Right, interesting. Okay, so you go to like the fucking weekly meetings and shit, or like what do you do?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Actually, the reason why the SpawnMasons exist is because I was recruited by the Illuminati to establish a presence in Minecraft, and so
Right.
I was paid
What?
to put
Could
the
you
symbols
elaborate on this,
everywhere.
please?
Kidding, I'm totally kidding.
The Illuminati, bro. So is that like just a kind of cool like network of people then in real life, the Freemasons? Like good for connections and shit?
Um, it's good in connections, but that's not the purpose of it, right? It's only good in connections in as much as joining any new group of people would be, right? When you know more people, your network expands. But the aim of Freemasonry is not to like, get more business deals.
Right. So what is like? I know this is a 2B podcast, but I'm just genuinely interested because this is just like I've never really kind of. I've always seen it as this kind of like giant spaghetti monster worshipping. I know it's not that, but that's kind of the image they give off. So I'm just intrigued by the fact that it's what they do basically.
Right. I mean, the basic concept that they do is they take good men and they make them better. There's a longer explanation that I could give.
Sure.
But, it's maybe an ancient organization. We don't know how long it's really been around for, which is kind of interesting. It's like, how can you track the beginning of human civilization? We don't know. It's lost to history. The same thing happened with Freemasonry. We know that in 1717, the Grand Lodge of England combined 3 different Masonic lodges and unified them under one Grand Lodge. So they were obviously practicing before 1717. We know that there was a manuscript printed in as early as 1380 that talked a little bit about Masonic lodges and their functions. So we know that they existed before 1380, but that's the earliest document that we can find. We really aren't supposed to write things down, so it's crazy that that document even existed. But beyond that, nobody knows. There's a whole bunch of theories, right? That it comes from Adam, from biblical times. King Solomon, and there's the whole temple legend. And then there's people think that we might have came from the Knights Templar. And then there's just, the theory of learned men joining operative Mason guilds and, embedding different philosophical meanings to the tools that they were using. But, it's definitely an interesting...
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's something I'll be interested in researching just for shits and giggles. Hopefully some guys made a nice YouTube documentary on it. But yeah, okay. So did you just talk? Did you finish with your how you founded the SpawnMasons, or was that kind of still going
on? No, I don't even think we really touched upon.
We didn't start it. Okay, all right. So cool. Founding the SpawnMasons. How did that? Because you said the name was inspired from your world famous Spawn base and the people you met there. So what was the spark? What made you make up a Discord server and be like, "Yup, this is what we're doing. This is my idea. Let's execute it."
Okay, I'm sitting in a Discord call with a guy named iTavix, and this person named Puffy Clouds, I think. And Puffy Clouds was just like a fan of Tavix's channel and my channel. They'd play every now and then, but they weren't really a 2B2T player. But they had suggested, you guys are so powerful already, you should just create a secret group of people. And I'd already had the name SpawnMasons from doing the Spawn Builders Guild. And so I was like, this would be a really interesting thing to do on 2B2T. And so Tavix and I are talking about this a little bit, and I set off and I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a little lodge and we're going to figure out how to actually do this. So I make a little lodge. I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, now I just need to come up with an initiation ceremony. And so I write an initiation ceremony. And I created Discord shortly after that. And I started inviting just people that I had been playing with. And the first person that was able to show up and do something with me was a guy named Jumbo Warrior, who came from Goodwill. Goodwill Corporation or Goodwill Trading Company. They were another group that kind of merged with Dawn Fear for a period of time. It was like the SpawnMasons were a combination of some Voco people, the Fourth Reich, Dawn Fear, and Goodwill Trading. So, I invite Jumbo. He comes, we find a plot of land, and Jumbo and I start building the lodge based on the schematic that I came up with in a creative world. I then initiated Jumbo, and then I had Jumbo initiate me. And we just kind of went from there. Every week we would, create more lodges and initiate more people into the group. But that was, the whole point was we wanted to have a group that had something special about being a member. There are a lot of groups on 2b2t where it's like when you join, the only thing that happens is you join a Discord.
Yeah.
And we wanted it to be a little bit more important than that. So we created, a ceremony, and everybody would come together and build and hang out for a while and welcome the new member to the group. And that was really something that hadn't been done on 2B before. And so I think the novelty of it appealed to a lot of people, or at least piqued their curiosities, especially if they'd see us, with our dragon heads on doing our thing, right? So there was a lot of interest there. And we would build these lodges at random bases too. There was one that was like 15 million blocks out, and even every now and then YouTubers would like stumble on it that weren't a part of the group. Eventually, I think all the major YouTubers did eventually join the SpawnMasons, but before they'd be like, there'd be a video where they'd run into the lodge and it'd be like, what the heck is this SpawnMasons thing? But
was getting all the YouTubers into the Masons a PR thing, or did you genuinely just like thought they were cool and wanted them to be in the group just for shits and giggles?
It wasn't. We didn't really need PR.
But just kind of like a flex
afterwards.
Right.
I mean, back in 2017, Fit was a different kind of player. I think he was still even swearing in some of his videos and stuff, right? Yeah. So Fit was just one of the boys. It was fun. We had a great time. He showed up to all the meetings and stuff and contributed well. Taraga Dude was in there as well. I think that kind of made the community at large feel a certain way about the Masons and held us up to probably a higher esteem
100%
than we would have been.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really kind of hit the ground running with it, like, because a lot of groups don't do anything for 2 months and then start getting active, but you guys seem from the get-go you were good.
It was really interesting for me just as a new player to, join 2b2t during the Russia War and then create a group that eventually the leader of Team Veteran would join, right?
Yeah.
But the only reason why it works like that is because when I created the group, I was like, we're just going to treat everybody like adults. I didn't want to have the whole Voco thing where it's like Coltsnit is on the top. I would have like an administrative rank and I'd be able to, make changes if I wanted to. But largely it would be like democratic. You could come and go as you please. I wouldn't like force you to like do anything that you didn't want to do. It was just, it'd be just a group where people could hang out and be around, be themselves. There's one rank in the Discord. You're either a SpawnMason or you're not a SpawnMason.
Did you experience kind of like a lot of pushback because you were a new player? Because obviously now it doesn't fucking matter, right? Like everyone starts groups at whatever age, in terms of how long they've been playing the server. But back then there was much more of the kind of old new player divide with the rushers and veterans. Like that was, I get the sense that was a lot more real than new fags and old fags are today. Like there was actually new players didn't like old players and old players didn't like new players to an extent, right? Obviously it's all block game lot, but did you experience any pushback from people because you're a new fag, like why is a rusher making a group, like anything like that?
I think that we had demonstrated some degree of credibility through having this 10th city here, right? Everybody had kind of seen that. They'd seen my spawn base And so I guess there was some level of respect that I had earned among the older players for actually going around doing things. And I had already been, talking to them for a while. So I didn't really get any pushback for being a new player, but it was definitely just something that was interesting because of that drama between new and old players at the time. A lot of people will try to tell you that the Rusher War was faked by Fit and Rusher and all that stuff, and that none of it was real. But it was very real. It would be like you'd be walking around Spawn, and if you didn't have a vet shield, somebody else would come around with a vet shield and kill you. You'd go to farms, and there'd be flags up with Team Vet or Team Rusher banners. Everybody was either on one side or the other, and if you showed that you were on neither side or the wrong side, you would have been hunted for it. It was a really strange time to be on the server.
That's never really been replicated since.
No, not in the same way.
Because it's always been, the 2B community's been split up into so many different factions nowadays, and it's been like that since the Russia War. That the Russia War is really the only time in 2B's history where the player base has actually been divided to like a 50-50 split. Although obviously it was basically like 90% of the player base were new, but a lot of new players identified with Team Veterans. I didn't play back then, I don't really know, but it seems like
that's it. You had to find your ink sacks, and that was difficult. But if you could find a couple of squids to kill, then you were in the club.
Yeah, craft the veteran shield, of course.
That's right.
That's great.
But yeah, it was very strange to have all the interesting players from the Russia War end up in the SpawnMasons. Even Sato86 became a member, and that was maybe one of the weirder people just to get in the group, just because Sato was made to be such a legendary player, and now he's just chilling in our VC Discord, every day. Right?
Yeah. Obviously you joined 2BTT when you're already quite old. Mind if I ask how old are you?
24.
24, yeah. So you were fairly mature when you joined 2BTT, unlike a lot of people who join when they're 13, 14. So did you kind of even though you were older, did you still have that outlook of seeing these players who you'd heard about in Fitmc videos or in Rush's videos or whatever, and seeing them as these kind of God amongst men type of shit? Did you still get that?
Them as, it's not that you think of them as gods amongst men. It's the Fitmc show was a reality show with stars in it, right?
That's true, actually,
and because it's Minecraft in particular, you're not necessarily thinking about the people behind these things, right? Everybody knows the name Pop Bob, but you wouldn't recognize their voice if they were to speak to you, right? No. Unless you knew that they were Pop Bob. And so, I remember the first time I spoke to them, I was like, this is weird. Pop Bob is just a real person living in our reality. Right?
He's not using the thunder hack.
Right. There's just something strange about Pop Bob being real, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you like to see yourself as or do you like to think that maybe in 5 or 10 years, when the next Fitmc comes around to document 2B's history, you'll be one of the main characters?
I think I already am, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't mean that from an egotistical standpoint or anything.
No,
but
not at all.
just based on the sheer number of views that my projects have gotten. I think that I kind of entered the Fitmc reality show around 2017, and it's kind of stayed that way ever since. Nowadays, I don't really need to try to advertise things. Things are noteworthy now just because I'm doing them, which is a different shift than what it's been before. Right? If any new player starts a new base or does creates a new group, it's no big deal. But if I do it, then Fit's probably going to make a video about it, right? It's that kind of a difference. I don't have to ask for PR.
Sorry to interrupt, boys, but I just want to let you know that we have a Patreon. By actively supporting the podcast, you will be able to attend our interviews live in-game at the studio and in Discord. By being in-game, you will be able to interact with the world outside and in front of the podcast studio, which essentially means you can just build some massive penises behind the window. Your name will also be added to the supporter signboard, and you'll get some Discord perks as well. So I hope to all see you in the studio soon. Now, back to the podcast. Okay, so let's say you weren't the famous Hermeticlock, right, or whatever, that sounds really cringe, but let's say you weren't who you are, and you just discovered 2B2T, okay, like in 2022, never heard of it before, you've been playing faction servers all your life, you want to kill yourself, blah, 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 and you just find out about 2B2T. What kind of challenges do you think you would face to get to a similar point of where you are now that you didn't have to face, or are different from the ones that you faced when you did it the first time around in 2017?
Well, the good thing now is that you can just message people and they'll respond to you, I think, for the most part. Back when I joined, you weren't really able to get responses from any of like the interesting players, but now I think you can kind of just message whoever you want and they'll probably reply. But if I wanted to become a well-known player in 2022 and I had just joined, I'd join the server, I'd install Discord if I hadn't installed Discord before, and I'd try to get into at least one 2B2T Discord as soon as possible and enter voice chats with different players, just to be a part of that community. And you try to get into a couple of other different 2B2T Discords and just enter voice chats with people. They don't have to be well-known players. They can just be, normal people on the server.
Yeah, just get your name out there, basically.
Right, just so that people know who you are. Then I would probably go out somewhere. It doesn't need to be far, and make a base of some kind. It doesn't need to be crazy. It does need to be like decent-ish. And when you find, when you hit the point where it's like good enough, just post it on the Reddit. Probably the uncensored Reddit, because that's where most of the 2B players actually will look for things. And then, that might be it for a little while. Maybe you do it again. But eventually what's going to happen is people are going to know you and the builds that you've created. You'll get invited to more Discord servers. You'll get invited to more groups. And if they see that you can actually build and you haven't griefed things, then, you'll probably become respected pretty soon. That was how you would do our recruitment for the SpawnMasons back in the day. I'd be looking at Reddit and I'd be like, who's an interesting builder? Maybe we could bring them into our group, right? That's how we found Crowbar.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did you find him from the MOAC?
No. We found it. It was it was his first build that he'd done. He just posted to the Reddit. Actually, what's really funny, a couple of us were looking through the old SpawnMason archive server today, and Crowbar would constantly be sending us these crazy pictures of these builds that he was working on, and nobody would even reply to them or acknowledge that he had sent them. There is a time when he sent a screenshot of the full Moke build, and nobody said a thing.
People just assume it's a creative build or something.
I don't know. We didn't. We didn't notice somehow. Yeah. I don't know why.
That man's.
It was drowned out. His build pictures were probably being drowned out by Fitmc shit posts.
Yeah. I mean that's always been the state of r/2b2t, right? It's just shit memes.
Oh no, I mean Fitmc is posting stupid shit in the Discord.
Oh, in the Discord. Oh, right. Okay. Fuck. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, maybe people did just kind of see it and assume, oh, that's a cool single-player build or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't acknowledge it. I don't know why.
Yeah, but backtracking a little bit, it's funny you mentioned the fact that you wouldn't grief anything, because that's a big mistake that a lot of new players kind of fall into, is joining 2B2T and instantly going out there, finding random fucking old ruins to grief, right, that are public, posting it on the subreddit, expecting you to get clout for being the next Pop Bob, and then it just turns out that you get hate from the whole server, and then you end up quitting because nobody wants to hang out with you, basically. So I think that's quite a common fuck up that a lot of new players do. So yeah, it's funny you mention that.
I think the only way to do it right today is if you've been around for a little bit before, and then you create a group that's like centered around griefing.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to like actually like keep it going. I don't know. I think BSB does that. Obviously, there's like the fifth column now. Back in my day, it was the Fourth Reich.
Fourth Reich, yeah. The OGs. Before that was what? Fucking Nerds Inc., I guess?
No, yeah, I guess, it was like Jared.
Yeah.
And then before Jared, it was Pop.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, though. If you do it right, BSB's been going on for what, like almost 4 years now? So, yeah, I guess if you do the... But you can't just grief, though. That's the thing. Like, if you just grief,
you gotta
end
have
up
like
just
your own
fucking
stuff
yourself.
too.
Yeah. It's kind of just like shooting yourself in the foot. Because
yeah.
as we established earlier, 2v2t is a social game, and with a social game comes social like consequences to your actions. So yeah, a lot of people think 2v2t doesn't have consequences. It does. Yeah. So going back to kind of this sort of beginning of the SpawnMasons, when did it kind of transition from these weekly lodges? And well, I know it never stopped doing weekly lodges, but when did you also kind of delve into big bases, right?
It took maybe a month and a half before we did our first base. There was like this little thing called the Kingdom Project, and not a whole lot came out of it, but we had fun. We did a whole bunch of stuff. I'm like trying to remember like the early days and the bases that we made. There were a couple like really nice ones. Volkatavia was one. There was a couple other Dawn Fears. We kind of absorbed Omega City at one point. There's another one or two also that were like quite large at the time. But Space Jam was probably our main base of like that year.
That was an end base, right?
Yeah, it was an end base. And we had like a private boat fly hack, and so we were able to bring different animals like 40,000, 70,000 blocks into the end. And the crown jewel of animals that were brought was a polar bear, which were notoriously difficult to get into the end because you can only fly baby polar bears or in a boat. If they grow up, they fall out. So you have to be quick. You have to be really quick.
That's cool. Getting polar bears there, nice.
But yeah, I think it's important too to talk about the philosophy of the SpawnMasons too, because I think that's what set the group apart a little bit as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys were kind of unique in the shit that you do, and even to this day, the group gets a lot of. Obviously, its main criticism is, it's LARP, but that LARP is what sets it out from the rest, right? It's what gives it its character.
Right. And so when I created the SpawnMasons, I set out to find some kind of, I don't know, philosophy that could be applicable to the server. And so, I took inspiration from Freemasonry, which takes like the different tools that are used, or just like mathematical formulas of the universe, and we put different meanings into things based on that. And so one of the things that the SpawnMasons do is we build lodges and then we grief them afterwards, right? So there's like death and creation and like the same thing. And the SpawnMasons live in between, the creative and destructive forces.
The middle of the yin and the yang.
Right, that kind of unification of opposites. So that was kind of the foundational idea. Eventually I'd come up with, the sacred number of the SpawnMasons, right? 2147, which is an abbreviation of I think it's the 16 bit integer max that you can have, 2.147 billion, which I'm sure you've seen in your time playing Minecraft Dig. But for those of you that aren't aware, it's the max digit that you can have in Minecraft. And so, if days, for instance, hit that integer, they reset essentially. And so 2147 is the abbreviation of that, and it's that number itself has creative and destructive qualities. Maps, for instance, you hit the max map integer, you break maps until you hit that integer again. So, just all sorts of different fun little philosophies that we kind of embedded into the Masons.
Yeah, you're big on your symbolism, huh?
Yeah, and then the last thing, and this is a first-time reveal. They're going to be upset about this one. We had this thing called a Mason shuffle, and this would be like, how did you identify another SpawnMason if you're just out and about, right? Like in the real life, Freemasons have like secret handshakes and grips and words and stuff. But we would do what's called a Mason shuffle, which is where we'd like stand and we'd like swap our items around. And actually, during lodge, you'd have to like you'd have to do a Mason shuffle before you spoke. Like I'd see somebody approach the altar, they'd do a Mason shuffle, then I'd call on them to speak.
Yeah. Can't be doing that too much nowadays. You get fucking banned for lagging the server.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Actually, dude, we joked so much about that when that was discovered. We were like, dude, the Mason shuffle was the biggest exploit the whole time. Yeah. We had it right there and then. But,
that's quite funny. Yeah.
Shuffling your items back and forth, right? That's also symbolic of like, going from one path towards the other. Right?
Oh, of course, right? Everything is.
So, and then and then in the middle of it, right, is you.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So
LARP. It's all LARP.
It's all LARP, but that's what gives the Masons their character, I suppose, and that's what as you've already said, sets them apart. So we've kind of covered the founding of the Masons, and obviously you're not in the Masons anymore, correct? No. So what's kind of like the storyline there? Because obviously Negative Entropy, I had him on 2 weeks ago, last episode, and he kind of explained how you kind of just thought you'd had enough of the Masons and you nuked the Discord, and then the members individually brought it back, and then you joined back, and then you left again. So can you kind of just give us like the whole story? I want clarification. Yeah.
Okay. Let me try and do this as best as I can recall. August 2017, somewhere around that point, Fit and Alpha Computer grief Summermelon, and that was a base that belonged to a SpawnMason member. Earlier in the year, SpawnMason members also griefed the other base, Wintermelon. No drama. Some drama ensued from that, but it wasn't enough that people really cared. And the main builder at that base, or the person that started it, Toshi, didn't really do much with the SpawnMasons after that. Until Summermelon got griefed, and then all of a sudden he came back and was like really pissed off because the whole Masons shouldn't like harm another brother thing. And fair enough, they griefed the base, and it was maybe something that they shouldn't have done. But the amount of arguing that happened because I wouldn't ban Alpha Computer or Fit from the Discord because of it was like kind of atrocious, and I just didn't really want to deal with it. And things would be like mended for a little bit, and then they'd bring it back up. Fitmc was forgiven for the most part because he apologized and actually felt kind of bad about what he did for a little while. But Alpha Computer is just like remorseless. And so, eventually we did do a vote to see if we would kick people out. Fit was voted to stay in the group, and Alpha Computer was voted to be kicked. I was like, okay, fine, we can do that. And then it was just like, I was playing 2B2T for way too many hours of my day, and it was just taking up all my time, right? Like I couldn't really focus on my schoolwork or strive for a career by spending the amount of time that I was spending on 2B. It felt like I had a full-time job running this group and trying to get these people to get along. And so I eventually was like, I need to step down. I don't really want to do this anymore. I just don't have the time for it. And I put the memo out. If anybody thought that they'd be able to run the group, efficiently, then they could send me a message, because up until that point, I was doing basically all the leadership stuff. Like, it was like a true, there's a leader in the group, if that makes sense. And so I was doing all that work and engaging people all the time. So nobody stepped up. Maybe a couple people did, but I just didn't think that they'd be able to keep it going. And so I was in a call with Tavix. I mean, the person that I created or came up with the idea with, really. And we were talking about just like the state of the Discord and the group. And we're like, this isn't even really fun anymore. And if it's not fun, then why even bother with it? So I was like, okay, I'm just going to we'll keep the Discord around, but I'm going to get rid of the group. And what I had hoped would happen was, obviously these people aren't going to stop playing together, but they'll create something new. That's what I had thought would happen anyway. I was like, okay, it might be weird for like a little bit, but the Discord will still be there if there needs to be anything that needs to be found. I knew that I'd probably invite people back just as an archive's sake, which I did do. And, the next thing will happen. Somebody will create a new group, and I'll be free to join that, but not have to deal with, leadership responsibilities. And so for a while, things were quiet. And then Henry and Ain were like, screw it. Let's just recreate the SpawnMasons. And so they invited everybody to a new SpawnMasons group, and they rebuilt it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I still didn't really have much time to play.
Were you invited to that, by the way, or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was invited. I don't know if I joined for a little bit. I was like a little bit like, guys, why are you just taking my idea, right? But if they wanted to play and have fun their own way, and that's how they wanted to do it, then sure. What I was kind of concerned about is I didn't want them to like ruin the name, because we had built up a decent reputation at that point, and I didn't want it to get like dragged through the mud based on however they choose to run the group. So they're doing that for a while, and then eventually I'm like, okay, yeah, this is fine, and I join up, and I don't do much. I'm focusing on real life stuff for a while at this point, and they're doing their thing for a while. And then like Henry's like kind of needs to step back, and the whole group gets inactive, and everybody's waiting for 1.13 to update for like a year. like bases were on pause in 2018.
Yeah, I remember. Because
everyone's like, yeah, no, we're gonna wait for the update Aquatic.
Load all your bells.
Yeah, exactly. So they would do like a couple like temp bases, but not really anything in particular. And I think late in 2018, I was like, the Masons aren't really doing anything. I have a little bit more time in my life again. I had like gotten a career, like a well-paying job or decent-paying job in tech, and I moved out to like San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and all that stuff. And I had a little bit more time to actually, I could go back to gaming if I wanted to, and it wouldn't affect my real life.
It wouldn't be a detriment, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a detriment to myself. So I go into the archive Discord, and I create a new channel, and everybody's in the archive Discord, right? New Masons and old Masons, and even still, I still allow new Masons to come into the old archive if they want to. So everyone's in the archive Discord. I make a new channel, and I invite like 3 people in it. And I say, now is the time for great reform. And it was basically, like, I want to get into leadership position again. We're going to make some changes and make things happen. And so eventually that's what we did. I got put back into a leadership position. We made a bunch of changes. We introduced like a degree system where you could like, only active Masons could have like opinions and stuff, which is, I think, still a meme about the whole being active thing has actually transformed into a larger meme than just being a Mason. But only active Masons can vote, and they would hold the highest degree.
So hold on. Can I just interject here? They dissolved their like the new Discord server that they made, and they all just came flocking back to your one just because you were the leader?
No. It was just where we planned it out.
Oh, okay, all right.
We stayed in the new one. It wasn't like
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that would have been quite weird.
Yeah. So I did this mostly with again like Ain and Henry, but also with some help from Jumbo Warrior and Nick Has Cancer. So I get worshipful again. We introduced the new degree system. People get super active. New bases are coming along. We founded Smibville, which was like a base that was around for a really long time. We're bringing in really cool people. Probably one of my highlights was meeting Lejerv in person for his interview for the SpawnMasons. I realized
awesome.
that he was just like a train ride away, and I took the train every day for work, and so I could just get off a couple stops earlier and meet up with him. And so I did that. He was a good fit. He joined the SpawnMasons, and from there, things really began to take shape because, Lejerv is an exceptional developer, especially with like Minecraft mechanics and stuff. And so when we sought out to like create the SpawnMason logo, he was pretty instrumental for that. With that, I was able to do some like web API stuff, but like the process of actually making it happen in game was definitely a Lejerv thing. I just kind of gamified it and made like a leaderboard system and like could track it on the map and all that stuff.
For those of you that don't know what you're talking about the big SpawnMason logo above 100k download. Yeah,
the big SpawnMason logo. Yeah, people think that was like, I mean, it took 8 days to do, but we were 24/7 on that. It was like kind of a crazy time. I remember I had an API that would estimate completion date based on the amount of blocks being placed per second, and we were watching that date get slower and slower until it was like, this is going to be done by Christmas Day. And we were ecstatic about that. We were like, it's going to be Merry Christmas to us. We're going to have this amazing logo in the middle of Spawn, and it's probably going to be there forever, at least until they raise the height limit. So that might have been one of the highlights, at least in terms of projects that I did with the Masons. Anyway, so that's like the end of 2019, I think.
Yeah. Mason
something like that. Maybe there was another year. I think it might have been around the end of 2019.
Yeah, Masonic Eclipse was early 2020, late 2019, I remember.
Okay. So, 2020 comes around. COVID comes around. We have a base called COVID 2147. There's the funny number again, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's all coming together for you now, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So, that's a really cool base. I brought Deloaded back, and Deloaded just went ham at this base. And everybody's having a really great time. Except, throughout this, these couple of years, there's just random, like, personal conflicts between different members. And I don't really feel the need to, like,
be a counsel.
Say what those are here or anything.
Right, okay.
Just because I don't want, I don't need to fan the flames any further.
Sure.
And I've pretty much forgiven anything that's happened at this
When you say
point.
personal conflict, you mean between others or between yourself and others?
It started off between others, and then I made the mistake of like taking a side, I think, and then I shouldn't have done that. But in any case, it then moved into like a whole other area of conflict where people would be upset if I would like invite guests to the server. But like imagine if we were in this voice chat right now and I brought somebody up and I was like, oh, we should invite them to speak with them right now, just real quick. Yeah, I would do that in the SpawnMasons server. We'd kick them out afterwards, and then I'd get like 10 angry people in my DMs that weren't there that were like, why would you invite this person to the Discord without, waiting a week and then voting on it? And then if they get it, and I was like, dude, what? So there were a group of people that wanted to vote on everything. And, I just, to me, it still felt like it was my group, I think. And it was like, why do we need to vote just to bring somebody in for a couple minutes that we just want to talk and voice with, right? People wanted to treat it like it was like really like their private like club, and no outsiders welcome, and any little thing that you need to do needs to be put up to a vote.
I mean, surely
you
do. Oh shit! I just pressed something. Surely you do understand where that's coming from, though, because you did you did create the whole group around being this kind of exclusive members club where everyone has their say and everyone is kind of equal. There's only one rank, whatever. So, like, surely you understand why, if the leader starts kind of going against this and doing stuff that an average member couldn't do, that can be seen as quite
well. I gave everybody, I think, permissions to invite people if they wanted to, but it was just there were two factions in the group. Some people wanted to vote on a lot of things, and some people were like, no, if we want to do something simple, we can just do it. We don't need to vote. And so I was obviously on the side that was like, yeah, dude, if anybody decides just to like, start up a project or do something, just do it. Or if you want to bring in a guest, just bring in a guest. Why wait a week for something if it's not even going to be relevant at that point? But so that's either, and I get what you mean, and that is definitely part of why people did get divided over it, right? People were annoyed that I had like set up this thing where it's like it's like a special club and everything, and if I didn't treat it quite as sacred as some of the others, then I get that would be a point of contention. But for me, it was just a place that I could goof around with my friends. I didn't take it super seriously, and so we would call them like the bicker Masons, right? Like they like bicker about like all sorts of stuff, right? So and I think maybe we called them the spoil sports too. Like they'd get in the way of like random fun that we could do. And so it was like we'd have like the people that in my mind wanted to have like a good time, and the people that wanted to spoil it for everyone. Obviously it was not a good way to like really look at it, but that's the way that like, we kind of saw it. And I think the camel that broke the straw's back was there was a guest at COVID 2147, like somebody that we had like voted and brought in correctly, right? Not my guest, but they would hang out in the voice chat like 24/7, and eventually like we all like collectively like decided that we didn't really like this person all that much, but we couldn't really do anything about it, because it's like it's not like easy to just like it's not like easy to like vote people out or anything. And this person would literally sit in the voice chat 24/7, and he wouldn't be AFK. He would be there. And so if you joined the VC, he'd be there ready to talk to you. And so I created a separate Discord server and invited a bunch of people in there just so that we could talk in VC without this guy like feeling like we were avoiding him, like by being in, we used to like move people to like the worshipful chat so that he couldn't like join it or whatever. But that felt weird. So I created a group called The Hideout, and we're in there just so that we can avoid this one specific individual.
Can you name this person or no?
I'd rather not.
Fair enough, yeah.
But so it's basically me and the old Masons, and a couple of other new folks. And I think that being in there, we realized what we had lost, in the other group, right? Like all like the kind of fun stuff that we did back in 2017 and stuff. And so like a bunch of them are telling me, Herm, you got to coup the server. Like it wasn't even my idea, but we all had like a lot of energy that night, and it was like high time. And so there was like 15 Masons, and we were like, let's coup the server. And we did. We invited like all the people that had been kicked before, like Fit and Alpha Computer came in. That's where like the baby boxes comment comes from. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but as soon as Fit joined the Discord, he's like, what's up, SpawnMasons? Still building your baby boxes at Spawn? And then he said something about how he had just gotten 1 million subscribers or something. I don't know, it was just funny. And then I think he called them the Simp Masons or something. But whatever. In the height of the night, we had Todorak, who had Worshipful as well, and he he did something. I can't remember what he did, but it was bad, and people got really angry that we did it. And I don't know. Eventually, I grew sour and I just left because I didn't want to deal with any of the drama. I started a new group called the Guardsmen, and to kick off the Guardsmen, we griefed the old the SpawnMason base called COVID, which Deloaded had really done most of the work in. Yeah, so we griefed that. Fit to the video, it was pretty dramatized because it's Fit, and he wanted it to be the end of the SpawnMasons, enter the Guardsmen. So that's kind of what we did. Right. There's the quote where I declare the SpawnMasons to be dead or whatever.
Right.
But that was that. We griefed the base. Nobody was at that base for a month when we did it. And even after we griefed it, nobody noticed until the video came out. Nice. And then they got really, really upset.
Wasn't there some shit because I remember this all happening and watching it on the Reddit. Didn't some people build some really obnoxious builds at this base, which pissed off a bunch of people or something?
Oh, there was okay, yeah. So Mothra would make these funny looking cubes, right? The alpha blocks.
Yeah.
You'd get the purple and magenta or whatever.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
He made a big one of those there, and Deloaded didn't like it, and so I removed it in secret, and everybody was like, "Who removed the cube?"
Was that to try and keep the peace, or just because you thought it was?
So Deloaded's he comes up to me and he's like, "Herm, if anybody removed the cube, what would happen? Do you think anybody would realize?" And I'm like, "I don't really know." He's like, "Do you think you could put TNT up there?" And I'm like, "No, dude. If you put TNT in the cube, it's gonna come down and explode stuff." So I baritone mined it, and I didn't tell anybody.
Nice.
There might even be people that learn for the first time.
Yeah.
But,
so a lot of people must have left with you then, right?
No. I was the only person that actually left the Discord.
Okay.
The other, and it wasn't a requirement to join the Guardsmen that you had to.
Yeah. But all these people are asking you to kind of let's do a coup or whatever. I know that's kind of probably blown out of proportion a little bit, but surely those same people would leave.
I mean that's kind of what I had thought too. But we were kind of, it's a group of people are really into something for an evening, and then it's oh god, mistakes were made. I think that's kind of how most of us felt. But I had already grown so tired of the bureaucracy of it that I was fine with not being in the group. I mean, I left of my own accord, and I've actually been much happier not worrying about the SpawnMasons or any drama pertaining to them. I don't care about what they do, really. They can do whatever they want to. I've been to a couple SpawnMason lodges, even in the past year. I get along with many of the members. It's all water under the bridge at this point for me, but I'm probably not going to rejoin just because I've enjoyed 2v2t better by not being a member.
Is it a positive feeling that in some ways the group that you created has kind of transcended you and become its own entity that's to this day incredibly successful on the server?
It's interesting enough. There are a lot of people that really don't like the SpawnMasons, or they think that they're this really, really powerful group or whatever. But because I kind of know how it all works in there and what the procedure and stuff is, it's I don't look at them with the same esteem, right?
Yeah, I think it's from the outside looking in, it's all the LARP and stuff which gives it that kind of aura of this kind of mystifying, weird magical sounds weird, but you know what I mean, this LARPy group that's kind of kind of on another level to other 2B groups, because that's how they act, right? That's how they present themselves to the public.
Well, you know, and to some degree, I'm glad that they still exist. And there's no way that it could be ran by me anymore, right? I have no time at all to really run anything on the server, to barely even play it. And so that there's always been kind of phases of activity for me in that regard too. I think in Entropy's video, he said that I bring people together, but I don't necessarily keep them together. And I think that's decently true, because you know, I can be active for maybe a month if I have a slower month, but when, you know, business gets busy again, for lack of a better word, then, you know, I have no time to play or to even, you know, care about block games.
Care about the internal drama and stuff. Like you said earlier, that it's like running a business. Like, it's like a full-time job, and that's so true. Like, you talk to Bucky Buck, you talk to like me back in fucking 2020, 2019, talk to anyone that's ever kind of led a group successfully. It's always kind of, it's a fucking constant battle. And but would you say you're proud of what the Masons have become? Yeah, I'm proud of what they're able to do. Absolutely. You feel like your child's grown up and it's doing all these cool things. You know, I think that once I separated myself from it, and I was able to be like, you know, they could just do whatever they want to, and I don't need to, you know, it doesn't need to be a reflection on me. That's when it was better. Because I think for a really long time, anything that the SpawnMasons did was just like associated with, oh yeah, that's Hermeticlock's group. Everything that the SpawnMasons does is related to Hermeticlock. Even when I wasn't like the leader, people thought that I was still like in charge of everything, right? I guess because of the way Fit portrayed it. Yeah, right. And so, you know, it felt way too personal for me to like not take personal. Yeah. You know, it felt like it was like if the SpawnMasons did something weird, it would drag my name through the mud too. Yeah. Right. So I was like very concerned about like the reputation of the SpawnMasons and whatever else. And also, you know, because of that connection with Freemasonry, it's like I feel like I have some duty to make sure that this group doesn't make that real life counterpart seem bad. If that makes sense. I get what you mean, yeah. So, but you know, by detaching myself from it, by not being worried about, you know, what the legacy of it looks like, it's I can just, you know, they can just do their thing, and I can just sit back and be like, yeah, you know, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't have to worry about the day-to-day whatever. Sure. And on the flip side of being proud of it, was there, obviously you seem happy and content with it now, but was there any ever I'm talking ever in its, like, for me, the times where you kind of left, was there ever any sort of like resentment towards them that, oh, you left and they're still being successful? Or was it always kind of like, yeah, it is what it is, fair enough, I'm happy? I don't think I've ever been resentful of success that the SpawnMasons have had. That's good. But you know, I have definitely been jaded on the SpawnMasons before. What do you mean by that? I think the way for me to know, or to just, you know, if I go back into the SpawnMasons, I'm going to end up caring about it too much. Yeah. And by not caring, it's made me able to appreciate them. Okay. So you're perfectly happy with your position now, and all the best to them, basically. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, there are, you know, I hang out with people that really don't like the Masons. What do you think it is about the SpawnMasons that make people severely dislike? Because I'd go as far to say that I'd say II definitely topped them, and maybe Imperium topped them back in the day. But I would say the SpawnMasons is the like most disliked group on the server in terms of people who dislike them for whatever reason. So why do you think that is? Do you think it's kind of because they're like private and they sort of act like above the average player, like, and that makes average players kind of resent them a bit? Yeah, you know, I mean, there's all sorts of fun little SpawnMason exploits, I guess, that you know, people wish that they had access to, maybe.
but you know, any type of group that becomes elitist is going to be a little bit disliked by players that don't share that same kind of status, I suppose.
And how much would you, obviously, I know you can't really talk now.
That doesn't mean that I mean, like, that doesn't mean that everybody that hates the SpawnMasons is just, they hate it because they're not
not
it's like successful.
Hate it because you ain't it. Yeah.
But it's I think that when you just act elitist, you attract that kind of attention, right? Where it's like, it's like
jealousy
the billionaire
and
class.
resentment.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess
it's the same thing as
like
real life, isn't it? But and from your time in the Masons, how to what extent would you say that the group was glued together by the fact that, due to the group's status, if you know what I mean? So the members were only a part of the SpawnMasons sometimes because they could say they were in the SpawnMasons, or has it always been everyone's friends with everyone? Because I've heard loads of, there's so many internal conflicts historically.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the SpawnMasons does it just because it's like, oh, I just want to have the title of being a SpawnMason.
Is that a part of it, though?
I don't think so.
Not at all?
Well, I mean, I guess that's hard to say. I mean, I still wear the armband.
Yeah, fair. Because obviously, because it seems to me that the SpawnMasons attract so many people that like really fucking want to join. Like, for some people, joining the Masons,
become a goal.
Yeah, 100%.
It's become like a sign that you've made it.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And you see a lot of players who kind of aspire to that, and kind of the best way of saying it is sucking them off. Basically, that's the quickest way. And you see a lot of people kind of sucking off the Masons to try and get in. So I feel like that probably does happen internally to an extent. Obviously, I'm not in the group, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that newer players aspire to. But I think once you're there, it's just a friend group, right? That's why when I originally disbanded the group, I was like, they're just going to form their own thing, right? Like, the people will stay the same, but the group will change, or the group name will change. That's what I originally had thought would happen. But that's what it is. That's why it's hard to get into Masons, by the way. It's not because it's like, or it's strict because you have to become good friends with them.
Yeah, it's the same as my group, BSB. That's exactly how it works. You just have to be a friend. Like, we literally have our own fucking Snapchat group where we all have each other's real names and bullshit, and like
there's a SpawnMason LinkedIn group chat.
Yeah, I mean, SpawnMasons have done countless like IRL meetups and stuff, haven't they? Like, you guys
I've had
people sleeping around each other's houses and shit.
Even after I've removed myself from the group, I've hosted SpawnMasons at my apartment.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So like, the animosity that some people think might be there is not really there between,
Yeah, that's definitely good to get cleared up, because that's kind of going into this. That was definitely one of the things I was sort of wondering, like, whether or not there was kind of, as you said, animosity between you and the Masons because of the way in which you left. But yeah, okay. So moving on from the Masons now, was it like you left the Masons straight away, you started the Guardsmen, or did you kind of like, was there some time where you sort of planned, or time when you were like, was there any period of time where you were like, oh, I'm kind of done with 2B for now, and then you kind of got the idea for Guardsmen came back, or was it straight away?
No, I was still on I'm playing 2B2T for a month or two. This is during the pandemic, everybody's at home,
true.
Right? And so really the only gap in between was a creative gap, right? I had to figure out something that would be interesting between like the name and branding. What would the initiation or ceremonies be like? Why does it exist? What do they do? Right? So, I had like a document, and I shared it with a couple people, and they'd revise things. And it was really fun. The Guardsmen probably should have been a 3-month group.
Oh, okay.
But and it's just kind of stayed because I've just not deleted the Discord. But we were really we were really only active during like 2020. A couple other projects like intermittently, um, but that was almost how it was situated too. It was like, it's the type of group that's going to be active for short blips in time, and then nobody cares for a little while, but then when we come back, we're back, that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, really good folks. Orson has been a really cool guy to get to know, and he took on a leadership role really early on.
Yeah, wasn't Orson just a random new fag you met on the highway and decided this guy's cool?
Or so he might have mentioned something tech related in 2B chat, and I that piqued my interest because I work in tech too. So I sent him a message on Discord, and we started talking from there. And I tried to get him to become a Spawn Mason, but everybody wouldn't let him into the Discord because he was too new. And I was like, there's like a whole bunch of like,
bitch, I started this group when I've been playing for like 6 months. What do you mean, you?
Yeah, I was like, this is a group founded by a new player, whatever. But it evolved into something more than the whims that I had at any given day. But I always wanted to do stuff like that. Like, I liked bringing people into the Discord and hanging out with them and meeting new people. But so Orson was one of those people, and because he wasn't allowed to be a Spawn Mason, but I thought he was super cool still, I was like, this is going to be like, on my list for the Guardsmen, and he was really cool. Still is cool.
Yeah, I remember when you guys first did the Homeland. That was just a really cool place to be honest, because it was like a very active base. Fucking Pop Bob was there, like, oh my god.
We went and the Hermeticlock propaganda campaign went out in full force. I think there were like 6 videos that were coming out about me. Like Sal just did one about the spawn base, so it was like really good timing. But yeah, we had that good like Homeland base for a while. I mean, it's still there, but it should have been like a 3-month thing, and then we should have called it good because we haven't done a whole lot since then.
Yeah, it's
now like it's a friend group, really.
Right.
Now.
Okay. Yeah, there's still people in it that are trying to like keep it active.
Yeah, it's people still talk in it every day, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because
totally fun. I still love the branding of the Guardsmen, and I like that the initiation only requires one other person, and it can be done at any time. Like when I created the Guardsmen, I was like, all the things that I didn't like about the Spawn Masons, I'm going to change. First of all, no more democracy, but you're not equal, but also it's like, everybody knew going into that if I wanted to have a final say in something, then it was up to me.
Yeah. So in the long term, why do you think the Guardsmen failed and the Spawn Masons haven't?
I wouldn't say the Guardsmen failed. It's still there, but the reason why it's not active is because I can't be active. I am not I can't play 2b2t like I used to.
Right.
And I don't care enough.
So you're saying that group's activity is directly correlated to your effort put in.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
and whoever wants to put in the effort to it, right? Like there are a couple leaders that would come through and they do really great things, but it's not able to come from me anymore. I just don't have the time for it.
Because you guys had such a great start, obviously, back when the Homeland, it was peak pandemic, peak everyone was playing, Q was fucking stupid, like 200, whatever. So why, like, did it not keep going? That's what I'm trying to kind of understand it. Like, what about the group made it so that it didn't turn into this big group, at least for 2020 when you were personally active? Obviously now it's a different story, job, whatever.
Well, I think when it was functioning really well, but I could only it's a lot of these things are dictated by the leader, right? And I just can't put in I'll go 3 or 4 months sometimes without ever logging into Minecraft, and so you can't lead a group with that minimal effort. So that's why it
and you couldn't find anyone to lead it on the
sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Some people would for various strengths or stretches of time, and then they just like get bored or want to do something else.
Yeah. Do you see yourself reviving it in the future, or do you want to do a fresh new idea?
No, I'll probably. Well, so I've had this idea for a while. I want to make a League of Villains, Dig.
A League of Villains.
A League of Villains, yeah.
Okay.
So actually, after the SpawnMasons were disbanded, a couple of us were like, let's just like be atrocious on the server as just like a rule, you know, and like we'll get a whole bunch of like kind of well-known players together, and we'll just wreck things up completely, and we'll call ourselves the Evil League of Evil or whatever, League of Villains. It would just be fun.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people are very I'm talking active players, are very cautious of their reputation nowadays, so maybe they wouldn't want to kind of risk it doing something like that. But then it's led by someone like yourself who's kind of well respected. Yeah. That's the difference from your average new fag starting like the 5 millionth griefing group.
Right. So yeah, if I do create something new, it'll be the League of Villains. If anybody else listening wants to just start that, go ahead. I don't, but you can steal the name. But yeah, that's kind of what I would do. Otherwise, we can always go back to the homeland in the Guardsmen, right?
Oh, it's a fucking it's very it's seen better days. But then again, so has world famous spawn base.
I love the mess. I love the mess.
Yeah.
I mean, the world famous spawn base in particular. There's probably no place on 2b2t that feels more like home. You know what I mean? I come to that little area and it's like, oh yes, these are my blocks. This is my perimeter.
This is my lava cast.
Take that away from me.
Yeah. So going back to what Negative Entropy said about you that you clearly agree with is you're great at executing good ideas but not good at making them last, right? Is that what he said?
Yeah, with the first SpawnMasons, right, I had to focus my time on like trying to become a decent member of like normal society, and after that happened, it's like I don't have much time for the server.
Fair enough. So would you would you blame that reputation on just the fact that you're a busy guy, basically?
Yeah, that's all it is.
You can't know life, unfortunately.
Yeah, if I was doing nothing, then sure, I could keep these things going for a while.
Okay, so it's not a lack of motivational skill; it's straight up a lack of time.
Yeah, it's a lack of time, and sometimes your interest in Minecraft will vary, but yeah, I don't have much time for it. I'll check Discord every now and then, but every now and then I'll go on like a streak where I don't check Discord for like a solid month too.
Really? Wow, that must be a lot of fucking DMs to come back to each time, huh?
It's really brutal, actually.
Yeah. Like, I go off Discord for a week and come back and it's fucking effort to read through all the DMs, but going off for that long, Jesus. Yeah. So, are you proud of your reputation on 2b2t and everything that you're known for accomplishing?
I tell people in real life about it.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's cool, actually. Yeah. So I take that. Yes.
I'm proud of it. It's it's just fun, right? And 2b2t became so well known over the past couple of years that's like every now and then people know who Hermeticlock is without me telling them who it is, which is so weird.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Like I'll talk about Minecraft with somebody, and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm big on Minecraft or whatever," and then I'll mention 2b2t, and they'll say, "Yeah, I've watched Fitmc," and then I'd be like, and then I'd say who I was, and they'd already know who that person is. That's cool. Happened in real life to me twice. And other people have like experienced that where they've like mentioned me to other people and they're like, what the heck? You're like famous in Minecraft?
Yeah. That's sick. I've never experienced that, so that's
But
fun.
then, just like other random Minecraft servers is where it happens the most. Like I can't go if I play on Hypixel, I'll get recognized and that's fun too.
That's cool. Yeah. So I mean, I feel that you've kind of answered this, and that this has kind of been the whole vibe of the podcast, actually. But would you say that 2B2T has had a net positive or a net negative impact on your life?
Positive.
And what have you gained?
So many cool people.
Yeah.
What have I gained?
What has 2B2T given you? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, there are certain things in my career that I owe to 2B2T, right? Like all these little personal projects that I've done contributed to things that I could put on my resume, right? Beyond that, I have clients that are 2B2T players. So.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
And are those people that found your services through 2B, so that's how they know you?
Yeah, or I've played with them on 2B for years, and they've got a company that could use my services, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's sick. And what about in terms of communicating? Because that was Negative Entropy's big one that he said he's benefited greatly from. People skills.
I think I had that going into it, and that's why I was able.
That's how you were so successful from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so the first question I asked you in this podcast was, to what extent is your 2B2T personality a reflection of your real life? So now I'm going to flip that and ask, how do you think your real life personality has been influenced by your 2B2T personality, if at all?
Okay, sure. I guess one instance that stands out that happened recently that I noticed was interesting, right? The Georgia Guidestones were recently destroyed. Do you know what these are, Dig?
I do not know.
It's like the American Stonehenge. It's we got this little monument thing. Somebody blew them up.
Wait, what do you mean blew them up?
They got explosives and they blew them up.
Really? That's awful.
Yeah, it is. But I was I was so indifferent to it. Probably because of,
It's just a fucking 2011 base being griefed.
I'm not super concerned about how long things last.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. After you have your bases griefed so many times, you learn to just stop caring about how sacred different monuments might be. It's
yeah, that's a weird mindset that even after all these years of playing 2B, I still have for some reason. That I think it's normal for people to have it in real life, but even on 2B, I still see things that were built a long time ago as cool purely for the fact that they're old, purely for the fact that they've lasted that long. When in reality,
don't get me wrong, I think they're totally cool, but I'm not gonna care if it gets blown up.
That's the thing. I do for some. I don't know why, and I think it's so retarded. But I always just get that kind of negative. Oh, that kind of sucks. Every time I see a Reddit post of a guy blowing up some fucking 2011 base, it's I don't know. It just doesn't sit right, and I don't. Oh my god! Well, I don't know if this is peaceful, bro. Bro, what have you done to my desk? It's gone. What's happened? Okay, well. Alright, you're kind of blocking the camera here.
My bad.
Does Hermeticlock know how to rebuild the DMC studio?
I don't know how that happened.
Well, that's a first. I'm gonna jump. Can you place a slab under me so I get just a bit of height, and then we can continue on from that.
Sorry, I didn't think that would actually work.
Yeah, this isn't a peaceful mode. So now I'm okay. All right, we're cool. All right. Oh, we're going fucking acacia wood, are we? Or jungle? Beautiful. Honestly, no, leave the glass out. I kind of like the way it looks with the shaders.
Alright.
It's nice. It's a cool looking base. Look at that. Sorry for those of you watching at home that was incredibly disturbed by the random TNT explosion sound. Okay, moving on. So I only have a few things left to ask you. They're kind of more sort of philosophical, kind of wide-reaching questions about 2B2T. So you might have already answered this in some parts earlier, but as a new fag, how should you approach 2B2T to maximize enjoyment?
Don't wait for anybody else to create or fun, right? You got to create it yourself. And also, build bases just for the sake of building bases, right? It's treat it like it's a sandcastle. It's not going to last forever, but it doesn't need to. The fun isn't because it lasts forever. The fun is because eventually it's going to get wiped out.
And someone's going to see it.
Yeah, and someone's going to see it. And, there are two things that you should be excited about in terms of building a base. The first is creating a base and having fun building. And the second one is sharing it with others. And now we have a museum, which, like the archive server, where your builds can last forever, or as long as, we keep continuing to pay for the server.
Yeah, it's really cool how people like Turbin's a fucking legend, man. I really want him on this podcast. Actually,
I can't believe that he's done such an amazing job with the archive.
Yeah,
it's one. So it's like I think maybe one of I wish he made it a non-profit of some sorts, but one of the most fulfilling things that I'm able to do is help support the archive server.
Oh, I didn't know you did. That's cool, actually. Yeah. So he takes donations from players then?
No, Turbin and I have split the costs since it started.
Oh, that's awesome. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because prior to that, we had the Vault, Project Vault, which was like some exclusive thing, and only had a few downloads, and the museum, which was just corrupt in how it was run, and we all know what kind
Turbin has put literally thousands of hours into the archive.
Yeah, it's fucking amazing.
The dedication is bewildering and inspiring.
Yeah, and that actually leads very nicely onto my next question. Actually, this leads very nicely on, because the next question is: are there any players, 2v2t players, you look up to or respect, and why?
Yeah, Turbin, of course, is one of them. Crowbar, another. There are a ton of people that I look up to, not even just because, they're 2v2t players. I look up to Orson, as just a great leader and mentor even. I have a lot of just great friends that I look up to on the server. I even look up to Negative Entropy in some cases, not all of them, but he can at least keep things going.
Yeah, I guess.
There's something to be said for preserving a tradition.
Yeah, I mean, Negative's done an amazing job by keeping the Masons running. It's because of how, correct me if I'm wrong, but he comes across as incredibly humble and incredibly neutral, and that's how I don't
know. I think the reason why he's able to do it is because he doesn't take sides, but sometimes that's a weakness too. But it's worked out fine.
Yeah, I mean, look at people like Iron Exception. He's kind of based his entire existence on the server of being neutral, and he's, kind of one of the most well-trusted, well-respected players on the server because of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and that's another example, actually, of kind of the 2v2t social consequence of your actions do, people, you do have a reputation, and that reputation allows you to either be kicked off the server by being hated, or multiplying your enjoyment of the server by tenfold because people trust you and invite you to cool shit. So, yeah.
Yeah. Other players, I like Jack the Ripper. I look up to Jack.
Why Jack the Ripper? Just because he's a good builder, or?
I guess just because he's a good builder. I don't know. I guess there's more. But, it's interesting, to look up to players as individuals. Most people, it's just they're friends with me. Do I look up to them? Sometimes. I look up to Lager every now and then. But, I'm more happy to be friends with people.
Yeah. Do you respect Fitmc?
Yeah. I think, I love Fitmc. I don't know what to say.
He's just a cool guy.
He's just a cool guy. He's super funny. Kudos to him for building the audience that he has, right?
Yeah.
I think people approach Fit wrong.
I agree. Yeah.
Mad about the over dramatization or dramatization of stuff. I think that you need to look at his videos if you're telling a bedtime story to your grandchildren or something. They're wonderful little stories. They don't have to be grounded in absolute facts.
Yeah, I said this in the Bucky podcast.
It's all entertainment.
Maturing on 2v2t is learning to respect Fit at least a little bit, instead of just thinking, oh my god, big bad. I mean, I 100% think there's definitely things he's done wrong, and I definitely don't like... I mean, my biggest gripe against him is how he portrays the server as family friendly to an audience of, kids who are going to join and, can get fucking... pulled into all this like neo-Nazi edgy bullshit, and you see that happening all the time. I mean, that's my biggest gripe with him.
Yeah, I don't think he portrays it as family friendly. Doesn't he like literally say to like not join?
He does, but that just entices you more as a kid. Like, just giving a disclaimer in the description isn't really like, sure, it protects him like fucking legally and maybe in his eyes morally, right? But I think there's still when you're making it seem like this cool fucking wasteland battleground, which 2b2t is very cool. It's not a wasteland battleground, right? It's cool in its own ways. It's not cool in the ways of fucking like antagonists, protagonists, fucking like good versus evil, blah blah blah, big battles and all that shit, which is obviously targeted to a very young demographic who looks at that and is like, oh my god, this is so cool. But on the flip side of the
sometimes BSB is on the evil side, right? Depending on the narrative, I think that I think some of it is there.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see the good versus evil thing. I mean, maybe you could prove us all wrong with your fucking group.
I was going to say, maybe when we create the League of Villains.
The League of Evil. The League of Villains. Sorry. Yeah. That would be the yeah. Fair enough. But no, I definitely think Fitmc... I mean, if I was in Fitmc's position, I'd be doing shit very similar to him. He's capitalised off of the incredibly good opportunity.
I mean, the work ethic is more than people give him credit for.
It's insane, bro. The fact that he was able to pump out weekly videos, like, people don't understand
for like
how
really
hard
long
they
time
are to make. Yeah. For what, like 2 years he was doing that? Solid? Like maybe even longer?
I think more, dude. Like 3.5 or
It's insane.
Something.
I wonder if he had a target for, like, legacy views, like views your older videos get put up. I wonder if he had a target when, let's say, he got 2 million views a week just from legacy views. That was his target, to stop uploading weekly and kind of relax a little bit. Or if he kind of just felt like it. I don't know. I feel like he would have had a target for it. But that man's won 2B. Fitmc and Housemaster are the true winners of 2B2T.
Sure.
But then again,
that reminds me, like purchasing 2B in 2021 was actually one of the more interesting things that I did too.
Purchasing 2B, bro. Hermeticlock is Housemaster. Am I just gonna get a silence on that? Okay, well, I'm glad it's made you a very rich man. I mean, you can afford that crown on your head, so yeah. That's okay, right, yeah. Well, I think that's everything. It's been a fucking pleasure. You've been great to talk to. We've talked about some really cool shit. I did watch your previous podcasts that you've done. You've done like 3 or 4 of them. I think you did one way back in like 2017 as well, which, holy fuck, that was 5 years ago, which that's weird. I think that what you're doing here is really well done too. Thank you.
Like
man,
the other podcasts, someone's just like playing like Gary's mod or whatever, but like having like the set and everything is like totally cool.
The set, and I just tried to ask more kind of questions that sort of go more in depth rather than how did Spawn look like when you first joined, and all the generic stuff. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So yeah, I hope you had a good experience. I forgive you for blowing up my studio. It will be repaired for next time. And any closing remarks?
I'm just sorry because I have a feeling more people are going to blow it up.
I might have to end up putting it on peaceful mode. Dear future guests, please do not blow up the studio. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Herm, so much for coming on. As I said, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. And thank you, my Patreon supporters, Yatta, Space, and LightningBolt44, currently, $5 a month. You get to watch the interviews live. Look at Yatta over there. She's just been enjoying the show. Are you? Yes, exactly. Yeah, type in chat how much you enjoy the watching the Digcast live. Very many. There you go, boys. So if that doesn't want to make you join, then I don't know what will. But as I said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.